Welcome to the Global Hydrogen interview series, also known as the Full Court Press, where we're going to take a rapid fire look at a market that some are calling the new oil of the 21st century. My name is 𝗚𝗂𝘀. I'm the director of the Energy Transition Dialogues at Gulf Intelligence. And with me today is 𝗚𝗂𝘀𝗁𝗃 Inamda. He is Head of Development Asia for 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁 Motors, which is a global supplier of zero-emission hydrogen fuel cell-powered commercial vehicles. A very good industry to be in right now, a very exciting industry to be in. Welcome.
Thank you, Michelle. And as you may have seen, we just listed on the NASDAQ this week. So it's a very exciting time for us as well. Thank you.
A lot of development going on. And that's actually one of your projects is something I want to touch on shortly, because I think it's certainly a big step forward, even if it is still in the patent pending stage. So just to start with some broad strokes, please. So hydrogen fuel cells, we know the potential that they hold. It's vast. We've known about it for several years, and obviously in the hydrogen narrative that's been intensifying so much in the last 18 months, particularly when it comes to green and blue to a lesser degree. We know this potential, but what can be done to get this technology positively disrupting mobility on a large scale in the next 5 years? So by 2025, 2026, what needs to happen for this to really be making a difference on the ground?
Well, there are two broad things that need to happen, right? So the first one is obviously the hydrogen supply. It needs to be available, the gas. The second thing is that the hydrogen needs to be competitively available. So if we don't want the hydrogen that's very expensive, in a way it makes us look bad. So what we are really keen on is that we focus on opportunities today in 2022, where or in 2021, 2022, etc., where the hydrogen is available abundantly, it's available competitively, and that helps what we call the total cost of ownership, the TCO, along. The second, obviously, is that the applications need to be competitively priced as well, right? And that's where we are involved. Obviously, 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁 Motors is a leading player in the space, and we must make sure that our vehicles are also abundantly available, also very competitively priced. And frankly, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I'll lead on, because I want to hear that next bit, because it linked to confidence, which I think your next point was going to touch on. Please go.
So I was just going to say that we are quite confident in terms of getting a very, very competitively priced vehicle on the road. We have a roadmap which is not very ambitious, frankly, but we can definitely get to extremely, diesel parity style competitive levels within the next 2 to 3 years for sure. And in some places, it's already happening.
2 to 3 years, that's a very short timeline, really. That is by 2025, we'll start seeing big changes on the road. In terms of the scale of rollout within that time period, what sort of numbers are we looking at?
So just just in terms of the region I look at, right? So I'm responsible for the Middle East and Asia, and within just this region, over the next 24 months, I would say we would have more than a couple of hundred vehicles on the ground, just as 𝗖𝘀𝘀. And that is, sorry.
Which countries will those be in?
So as you may have seen or heard in the news, we have an MOU in place with NEOM in Saudi Arabia. We are establishing with our partners, which is Modern Industrial Group, we are establishing a joint venture and a presence on the ground. We have also committed to an assembly facility within NEOM. So that's a large project in itself that we have undertaken. We are also quite confident of other neighboring countries in the GCC region. So I would say the UAE, generally, Oman. There are some very exciting announcements you may have seen that have come out of Oman as well. Of course, and to look at the rest of Asia, we are extremely focused. I'm personally based in Singapore, so we are extremely focused on Southeast Asia, on East Asia. Your countries like Taiwan, Japan, Korea are very, very interesting as well. So I would say we are, in terms of immediate visibility, NEOM is going to be a big driver. But in terms of other very exciting developments, I would not be surprised if a couple of equally big developments came up for us as 𝗖𝘀𝘀𝘁.
And when we say equally big, and we're talking about NEOM, those are really quite sizable. From an investment point of view and an investor viewpoint, looking on this market and looking on the company as well, how significant and meaningful do you think your involvement in that NEOM project is? Do you think it's a real boost for investor confidence in what you're doing and the R&D that is going into it?
Absolutely. So look, we were very proud that the NEOM announcement came out in the run-up to our listing process. That was an important milestone for us, and that was something that we aimed to achieve. And we are also proud that the NEOM MOU is quite broad. It's extremely ambitious. So like I said, it has the opportunity for us to deliver a couple of vehicles on the ground within NEOM, and we are calling it a demo fleet. So just to be clear, it's not even the actual fleet, right? If we think in those terms, then
I won't go and pick up my keys just yet.
No, exactly. So look, I mean, we were very proud to announce such an ambitious project in the Middle East in the run-up to our listing. And that just gives you a sense of how we looked at the opportunity. We think it's only going to grow just within NEOM as well, because it's frankly a renewable or it's a sustainable city in the middle of the I mean, not in the middle of, but it's in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It's very prestigious to work with. There are fantastic people on the ground heading the various departments at NEOM, and we are excited just for the potential of NEOM. But more than that, we are excited to be servicing the entire region out of our facilities at NEOM.
So you're hoping that this creates a domino effect. We've already touched on the UAE and Oman, which, and I'll touch on those later in terms of a lot of progress, especially with the UAE and what they've done with hydrogen fuel cells. But are you hoping that it will trigger a broader domino effect, this progress at NEOM when it comes to your work?
We think so. In fact, we think the domino effect has even begun. So like I said, there are two levers, right? One we control entirely, which is the cost of the vehicle, for example. But in terms of competitively priced hydrogen, with ambitious targets for what the price of hydrogen per kilo, etc., should be, nobody can really compete with the Middle East today. And the domino effect in that sense has already begun. NEOM is obviously the largest announced project in the recent past, right, in terms of the hydrogen production capacity. But there are even bigger projects.
That's worldwide. That's not region. That's worldwide.
That's worldwide, exactly. And there are even bigger projects under development, as you would know, in Oman as well as in the UAE. So there's already a little bit of this friendly competition we see on the ground, and there is a serious engagement from the authorities in these three countries, just to mention three for now. But there is a serious engagement from authorities, from large industrial conglomerates, or even from investors. We have seen state-linked investment groups also looking at this very seriously. So all of these things make me feel, and us feel, extremely excited about the potential for competitively priced hydrogen in the Middle East.
And perhaps sooner than the 2028, 2030 number, dates line that's been mentioned so far.
Absolutely. We as Hyzon don't believe it should be 2028, 2030 at all. We think it's 2025. And frankly, it's 2025 because these are large, complicated projects. So it takes some time to get the fundraising process, the project development process, etc., in place. It takes some time to build these projects, but the numbers that we know are going to be achieved pretty with a high degree of confidence, I would say. In
2025 for competitively priced green hydrogen in the Middle East.
At the scale at which NEOM, etc., are doing it, yes. But NEOM is going to do it even before 2025, frankly. But if we went to some other technologies as well, for example, something decentralized, for like Hyzon, for example, has a strong belief in terms of the capability of, or the ability of waste to hydrogen style technologies, biogas, biomass to hydrogen style technologies. These are also green in most cases, and you can get to a $2 or whatever extremely competitive number very quickly as well.
And that's it's relatively unexplored still. I mean, that's similar to hydrogen. That's not a new conversation at all. It's just one that's being increasingly explored. And of course, R&D lies at the heart of that. And I just want to touch on that R&D because you were talking about, obviously, there's part of the pie that you have no control over whatsoever, but is developing quite fast now, which is very beneficial to what you want to do on the part of the pie that you do control, and that is the R&D and the commercialization aspect of it. And part of that is art, innovation, and a huge step I think that you've mentioned recently is a patent pending onboard hydrogen storage system, and the technology has the potential to reduce the overall weight of the system by 43%, storage system cost by 52%, and required manufacturing component count by 75% on a single rack system with capacity for 5 hydrogen cylinders. So this is obviously a very big deal because it counters the arguments against hydrogen fuel cells that it can be inefficient in terms of storage, it can use too much energy, and due to its weight and its just overall volume, it's not as much of a golden child as some people are saying. But these numbers start to suggest otherwise. So it seems a big step forward. Am I overly optimistic, or is this correct?
No, you're absolutely. I mean, that's firstly a great question, right? I mean, we have the announcement that came out just recently. I mean, you've covered the key talking points. So we are very conscious of the fact that when we talk of hydrogen fuel cell vehicles versus, for example, battery electric vehicles, we are going to be about 5 tons or so lighter, maybe up to 8 tons lighter on a class 8 truck, which is about a 40 to 50 ton payload style vehicle. So we already save a lot in terms of vehicle weight, and that that also translates to the efficiency of the vehicle, as you can imagine. However, we don't want to stop there, right? This is with existing technologies today. What we want to do is to make sure, as Hyzon, that we innovate in terms of storage. We innovate in terms of how we even store the molecule on the vehicle. So you may have seen recently also the announcement with Chart Industries. We are exploring liquid hydrogen as well on board the vehicle. That will allow us to address some of the range issues. So we are able to go up to 1,000. I think it was 1,000 miles, if I'm not mistaken.
That's the number I saw too.
Absolutely. We are also looking at, you may have seen the recent announcement we made for a 154-ton truck in Australia for mining applications with a subsidiary of Korea Zinc. So that's Arc Energy. And for some of these extreme heavy-duty vehicles, you're going to need a fair amount of hydrogen as well on the vehicle. You know what I mean? So we want to make sure.
154 tons, yes.
Exactly. I mean, that's definitely the heaviest hydrogen vehicle announced today, and we're proud to be there. But like I said, I mean, we're very conscious of what is going to be needed to make such a vehicle be even more efficient, even more attractive than it already is in principle, right? A lot of people want to go to hydrogen just because it's going to be green. That's a fantastic reason. We applaud that, we support that, but we also want the vehicle to in itself have the engineering capabilities, etc., that make it even more attractive than the alternatives today. So I mean, so battery is not an alternative that I think of when I think of 150 tons. That would be more the conventional truck, certainly. But we are very conscious of having to reduce the payload, not the payload, reduce the weight of the hydrogen storage, to reduce the penalty that comes from having to store a lot of hydrogen on the vehicle. And this is not even mentioning the fact that we can go from 350 bar to 700 bar as well, right? So that's a simple way as well to store in terms of managing the volume on the vehicle for hydrogen storage. So
I know it's not at this stage just yet, but the idea of a 154-ton vehicle being able to be powered by hydrogen fuel cells for 1,000 miles. I know we're not just there yet, but that sentence in itself is a game changer.
Absolutely.
It would quiet a lot of critics to be able to do that. And what kind of interest are you seeing from industries in terms of, obviously, where you're sitting, you're trying to provide these solutions and trying to give them these options. What kind of appetite are you seeing from them to change? Are they eager to adopt these? Are there some old hats who think that this is, this is a similar conversation we had with electric batteries, and they've got all their problems. Now we're talking about these hydrogen fuel cells. They're going to have their problems, and it's all this modern mumbo jumbo that we can't quite get on board with. Is there a sense of that?
So I wouldn't say that, because so there's a lot of enthusiasm from the industry, from some industries in particular. So like mining, for example, ports is another ecosystem that is I would say bullish on hydrogen, and should be. So we are seeing, of course, we have various announcements with the food industry. We have various announcements with refuse collection trucks, for example. So there are certain applications that just make a lot of sense with hydrogen today. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, with most large business groups that are in these activities, they already knew it was attractive. And what I think everybody was waiting for was, as we briefly discussed before, when the vehicle becomes actually competitively priced, as well as when the hydrogen becomes actually available, right? I mean, the chicken and egg problem is just too daunting sometimes. So, it just needs some kind of momentum to come from sometimes the authorities, or sometimes just the fact that, as we say, that the time for the technology has to come as well. So we are seeing a bit of that. There's a lot of enthusiasm. It's not a very young technology in many ways. I mean, look, Hyzon is a spin-off of a company known as Horizon Fuel Cell that was established in 2003. I mean, we've been doing this for a very long time, and we are very happy that finally the world is also waking up to the potential of hydrogen in many ways.
And when it comes to safety, do your, not just your clients, but the broader industry, do they have any safety concerns, or any questions? Is there a lot of
well, we do hear questions, certainly. We don't see there, I mean, there's no additional safety consideration that we think people should keep in mind. We recently had one of our clients ask us, so, can we take care of servicing of these, commercial vehicles in the same space as diesel vehicles and battery electric vehicles? So we said, yeah, of course you can. I mean, we need to make sure that it's stored correctly. It's meeting the regulatory standards in not just every part of the world that we supply vehicles to, but also, something that makes sense. It needs to be safe. But we don't see there being a big concern around additional safety considerations because it is a hydrogen fuel cell powered electric vehicle.
And looking ahead over the horizon for the next 6 to 7 months, as we're taking us towards 2022, what would you hope on your wish list in terms of development of this market, not just in your company, but on a broader scale? What would you hope happens? The level of progress you want to see?
Well, I think what is necessary is, again, we get to the chicken and egg. We need for hydrogen to be available in more parts of the world. We need for that hydrogen to be as green as possible, and I think there's a sense that is already happening. The Middle East, to some extent, I'm almost tempted to say it's we don't need to push anybody. It's already going on. However, in the Middle East, what you have is a slightly unique market where it comes to hydrocarbons, right? So diesel is extremely, I'm almost tempted to say it's free, and that is a concern. So the kind of calculations for TCO, as I said, total cost of ownership that we're seeing in other parts of the world, we think that at about $4 or $5 at the refueling station, hydrogen powered vehicles actually beat diesel powered vehicles. Commercial vehicles I'm speaking about. Buses and trucks and so on. In the Middle East, that's going to be a slightly distorted picture. So in terms of my wish list, I would like there to be some incentives for corporates and industrial groups and mining companies, etc., to also take care of some environmental targets.
So do you want to see them introducing subsidies, or would you like to see the current subsidies on fuels reduced?
My temptation, well, my temptation is to go towards the second option, but that's my personal opinion almost, because sometimes it's sometimes the alternative that you proposed earlier also makes sense. It is so. If we were in a subsidy-free world and diesel was priced fairly, I think we would be quite close to competitiveness in many markets, not all, mind you, but in many markets where hydrogen can be made available at less than $4 a kilogram.
Currently competitive or competitive by 2025?
No, even today. So there are some unique parts of the world. For example, there are some applications in Australia, some applications in California, where you would say that fuel cell electric vehicles are competitive, full stop. There is no caveat to it. And that's because hydrogen is competitively priced. That's because there is a requirement for a long range on the vehicle. There is also a demand from the industry, which allows the volumes to drive down the price of the vehicle as well. So I would say in the Middle East, we have some of those same elements, but what is needed is to also take away the distortion that comes from a very, very low priced fuel, which is our competitor, right? So the diesel, etc.
Give it a boost, a bit of help.
Exactly. And like I said, I know it's a complicated equation for the authorities as well. So I don't know, in some cases, it might make sense to offer subsidies on one side rather than take subsidies away from the other side.
It certainly is. It is a very delicate and very complicated situation for the authorities. But there have been big reductions going on across the region in fuels already, in water, in power as well. So that train is rolling, and if it continues to go in that direction, then it may provide that boost organically, even before we hit this, the very rational thinking of it helping the hydrogen market as well. Mrugant, thank you so much for joining us. We've gone over because there's just so much to say on this. So I hope you join us again, and maybe end of this year we can touch base on all the progress, because it's moving fast, especially in the Middle East.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It was
Thank
a pleasure.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.